She said it so quietly I almost thought I imagined it. You remind me of my younger self. And in that moment, the room felt smaller, like her words had drawn me closer without her meaning to. It was late, almost 9 p.m., and everyone else had gone home. The only sound in the office was the faint hum of the air conditioner and the soft tap of her pen against a half-empty coffee cup. I was supposed to be helping her finish a quarterly report, my first big project since I joined 3 weeks ago. But I wasn't looking at the spreadsheet anymore. I was looking at her reflection in the window. Aisha Malik, my boss. 46. Sharp. Unreachable. The kind of woman who never lost control of her tone or her time. And yet tonight, she looked tired. Not weak, just human. Do you always stare this much? She said suddenly, her tone dry but not cruel. My face went hot. Sorry, I was just, trying to understand the formatting you used. She smiled faintly, one of those half curves that never reached her eyes but still made something in my chest tighten. Nice save, she said, glancing back at her screen. Though I doubt spreadsheets require that much admiration. I didn't know what to say, so I laughed, too softly, too nervously. She didn't look up again, but I saw the corner of her mouth twitch, almost like she'd enjoyed catching me off guard. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was heavier than that. The kind of silence that fills a room with all the things neither of you are brave enough to name. I remember her perfume, something faintly floral but not sweet, like it belonged to someone who didn't care to be noticed but always was. Her fingers moved over the keyboard with steady precision. Mine hovered uselessly over the mouse. I should have been focusing on work. But my heart was racing like I was 17 again, standing too close to someone who made time blur. Then she sighed, that quiet kind of sigh that says more than words ever could. You remind me of my younger self, she murmured, eyes still fixed on the glowing screen. I blinked. What do you mean? She leaned back in her chair, studying me for a moment too long. Curious, restless, a little too sure the world will bend if you push hard enough. Her eyes softened, then darkened. It doesn't. Something in her voice, low, restrained, made me want to ask what happened to that younger version of her. But she turned back to the laptop before I could. I guess I'll find out the hard way, I said quietly. She looked up then, really looked, and for a heartbeat, I could have sworn she was deciding whether to tell me something important, something that lived behind her careful professionalism. But instead, she just said, "You already are." The clock ticked past 9. The lights flickered, and suddenly, it didn't feel like an office anymore. It felt like a secret we were both pretending not to share. I gathered the files, trying not to brush her hand when I passed them over, and failing. Her fingers brushed mine, light but deliberate. The air thickened between us. She didn't pull away first. You should go, she whispered finally. I don't want to, I said before I could stop myself. Her eyes met mine again, calm, unreadable, and just a little sad. Then don't, she said. A silence stretched, delicate and dangerous. Then her phone buzzed, loud in the stillness. A name flashed across the screen. She froze, her expression unreadable. And just like that, the moment cracked. She stood, smoothing her jacket like armor. We'll finish this tomorrow. But as I walked to the door, her voice stopped me. Rayhan, she said softly. I turned. She didn't finish the sentence, just looked at me the way someone does when they know they've already crossed a line they can't uncross. And in that unfinished moment, I realized whatever this was, it had already begun. The next morning, she didn't look at me once. Aisha was already at her desk when I arrived, reading emails like nothing had happened. The light from the window fell across her hair, catching a few silver strands that only made her look more composed, untouchable again. Morning, I said, setting down the reports. She nodded without looking up. Morning, Rayhan. That was it. No warmth, no echo of the moment we almost shared last night. Just 2 syllables that pushed the world back into order. But something in me refused to forget. The way she'd said then don't had stayed in my head all night. Looping, haunting, I'd almost texted her once or twice. I didn't, but the thought lingered like caffeine I couldn't shake off. By noon, we were in her office again, the door closed, the air thick with polite silence. Your section on a client analysis was good, she said, scanning a document. Though you over-explained a few parts. I swallowed. Guess I talked too much. That earned the faintest smile. Yes, you do. Her voice was softer this time. Less about feedback, more about something else. She looked up, meeting my eyes for the first time that day. And suddenly, I couldn't stop noticing her. The faint lines around her mouth, the tiredness beneath her confidence, the small silver ring she wore on her left hand. It wasn't a wedding ring. She'd told me once, in passing, that she'd been married years ago, then quickly changed the subject. I hadn't asked again, but I wondered now what kind of man had let her go. I tried to focus on the numbers, the charts, anything that didn't involve watching her lips move when she spoke. But the truth was, I liked the sound of her voice too much. Calm, controlled, and occasionally, when she let her guard down, almost tender. At one point, she caught me staring again. What? She asked, not sharply, just curious. I hesitated. You seem different today. She tilted her head slightly. Different how? Quieter. Her expression softened for a second, like she might say something honest. Then she glanced at the stack of papers and said, "Deadlines make everyone quiet." But the lie was too gentle to believe. Later that afternoon, it started to rain, hard, steady, rhythmic. Most people left early. She didn't. Neither did I. You'll get stuck in traffic, she said, glancing at the window. I shrugged. Doesn't matter. Always so sure you'll be fine, she said, almost under her breath. There was something in her tone, not annoyance, not admiration. Something closer to worry. Are you? I asked. She looked at me then, really looked, and for once didn't deflect. I used to be, she said quietly. The room felt too small again. I could hear the rain beating against the glass, smell the faint trace of coffee between us. When she reached for a file on the desk, her fingers brushed mine. Neither of us moved. It wasn't accidental this time. We stayed like that for a moment, hands barely touching, the sound of rain filling the silence neither of us dared to break. Then she withdrew, eyes unreadable. You should go, she whispered again. But this time, she didn't look away. And I didn't move. The next few days were a blur of unfinished thoughts. We worked together, spoke when we had to, and pretended not to notice the way our eyes kept meeting in the glass reflection of her office door. Every time I caught her glance, she looked away, too quickly. Something between us had shifted after that touch. It hung in the air, unspoken but undeniable. Friday evening, the office emptied again. Rain, as if the sky had learned our pattern. I was halfway through packing my laptop when she said, "Rayhan," a word. Her tone was even, but her eyes weren't. They flickered, uncertain, searching. I stepped in, closing the door behind me. Something wrong. She hesitated, fingers tightening around her pen. You can't keep staying late, she said finally. People notice things. I frowned. Notice what? She exhaled sharply. You're not stupid. You know what I mean. A quiet hum from the fluorescent light filled the pause between us. So, you care what they think? I asked. That's not the point. Then what is the point? Her lips pressed together. I'm your boss. I'm older than you. You're. She stopped, shaking her head. This is not a story that ends well. Her words hit harder than I expected. You've thought about how it ends? That made her flinch, a small, involuntary movement. She looked away, but I saw her swallow hard before whispering, "Don't make this harder than it already is." The room went quiet again. I could hear the rain tapping the windows like a pulse we couldn't escape. Then a knock on the door. Aisha straightened instantly, the transformation almost painful to watch, her warmth vanishing behind a professional mask. "Come in," she said, voice level. It was Hassan, our department head. Middle-aged, easy smile, the kind of man who noticed too much. "Still working late, Aisha? You'll burn out the kid," he joked, glancing at me. She forced a smile. Just finishing reports. Hassan nodded, eyes moving between us a beat too long. Good. Just remember, HR frowns on overworking your subordinates. He winked and left. The silence he left behind was suffocating. Aisha exhaled shakily. See? That's what I meant. Let them think whatever they want, I said. We haven't done anything wrong. She looked up at me, eyes suddenly fierce. That's exactly how wrong things start. For a moment, neither of us moved. The sound of rain filled everything again. Then she stepped closer, close enough that I could smell her perfume again, that faint trace of jasmine and restraint. Her voice dropped to a whisper. You need to go home. But she didn't step back. Neither did I. The air between us felt like a held breath, fragile, waiting to break. I reached for the folder in her hands, my fingers brushing hers. She didn't pull away. Her lips parted, maybe to protest, maybe to say my name. Then her phone buzzed on the desk. The screen lit up. Hassan, dinner tomorrow? We need to talk. Her hand trembled slightly as she turned the phone over, face down. I saw something flicker in her eyes, fear or maybe guilt. I should, she began, but her voice cracked halfway. Aisha, I said quietly, tell me to stop, and I will. She met my gaze, eyes soft, desperate, and breaking all at once. I can't, she whispered. And before either of us could move, the lights flickered, plunging the office into half-darkness. We stood there, close enough to touch, too scared to move, the storm outside matching the one we just unleashed. All weekend, I waited for a message. She didn't text, didn't call, didn't even open the project files I'd sent. I told myself I didn't care, that it was just work, that she was my boss, but by Sunday night, every thought circled back to her. When Monday came, she wasn't in her office. The blinds were drawn, her chair empty. Her assistant said she'd taken the day off. Something twisted in my chest. Fear, jealousy, I couldn't tell. Hassan's message from the other night still burned in my memory. Dinner tomorrow? We need to talk. Talk about what? About me? About us? By Tuesday, she was back. The sight of her hit harder than I wanted it to. The calmness in her face, the way she avoided my eyes, the small gold bracelet on her wrist I'd never seen before. I wanted to ask if she'd seen him. I wanted to ask if I had any right to care. But when she finally looked at me, her expression stopped me cold. There was something restrained in it, something that said, don't push me right now. Close the door, she said quietly. I did. She gestured for me to sit. About last week, she began, her voice steady. We crossed a line. I nodded, pulse quickening. It was nothing, she continued, as if saying it aloud could make it true. Just misinterpreted closeness. Misinterpreted, I said, too sharply. You didn't pull away, Aisha. Her eyes flicked up to mine, sharp warning. Don't. I'm not making this up, I said. You felt it too. Her jaw tightened. You're too young to understand what I feel. I almost laughed. That's a nice way of saying you're scared. Her eyes flashed, the first real crack in her calm. You think this is easy for me? I built everything on keeping control. And then you walk in, too eager, too honest, too much like who I used to be. She stopped herself, voice breaking slightly. The silence that followed hurt more than her words. I stood, unable to sit still. So that's it? You're just going to pretend it meant nothing. Her voice softened. You'll move on, Rayhan. You should. I stepped closer, close enough to see her breathing falter, to see the faint tremor in her hands. What if I don't want to? Her breath caught. You don't get to want this. The words stung, but beneath them, something flickered. Desire, fear, regret, all tangled in one trembling exhale. We stood inches apart. The air between us was electric, too thick, too alive. Her hand brushed against the desk, steadying herself. But when I reached out, she didn't move away. Tell me you don't feel anything, I said quietly. Her lips parted. I can't, she whispered. I took one more step, her perfume wrapping around me like a memory. She closed her eyes, just once as if surrendering. And then, a sharp knock on the door. We froze. "Ma'am," a voice called from outside. "Mr. Hassan is here for your lunch meeting." Her eyes opened wide, panic caught. We both stood still, breathless, hearts pounding, inches away from what neither of us could undo. And before she answered, I knew whatever happened next would change everything. The moment Hassan's name was spoken, everything inside her changed. Her shoulders straightened, her tone hardened, and the woman who'd almost let me touch her vanished. "Give me a minute," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I nodded and stepped back as she composed herself, smoothing her blouse, brushing away the moment as if it were dust. By the time Hassan walked in, her expression was calm again, like nothing had happened. "Ready?" he asked, smiling like he owned the room. "Yes," she said. "Let's go." He glanced at me, his grin widening slightly. "You too, Rayhan. Might as well join. It's a good learning opportunity." My pulse stumbled. I didn't want to go. I didn't want to sit across from them, pretending I didn't know something had already broken inside me. But Aisha didn't protest. She didn't even look my way. The lunch was unbearable. Hassan talked endlessly about company expansions, investments, and a dinner he and Aisha had shared over the weekend. Every casual mention twisted deeper. He leaned closer to her when he spoke. She didn't move away, and I smiled, nodded, and felt something in me quietly crack. At one point, he said, "Aisha's been with us a long time. Hard to imagine this place without her. Isn't that right, Rayhan?" I met her eyes for a fleeting second, but she looked down at her glass, pretending to stir the ice. "Yeah," I said. "Hard to imagine." Back at the office, she avoided me again. No small talk, no faint smiles. Just silence. By evening, I couldn't take it. I knocked on her door. She didn't answer. I knocked again, louder this time. Finally, she opened it. Looking tired, her lipstick faded, her eyes rimmed red. "Rayhan," she said softly. "Not now. Then when?" I asked. "After you tell Hassan? After he tells everyone?" Her brow furrowed. "Tell him what? That we—" I stopped, realizing how foolish it sounded. "That something's going on." "There isn't," she said sharply. "Whatever you think this is, it isn't." The words hit like a slap. "Then why can't you even look at me?" I asked. She turned away, but her voice cracked when she said, "Because if I do, I'll forget why I shouldn't." That silence again, the one that suffocated more than shouting ever could. Then, her phone lit up on the desk. A message. "Hassan, don't forget the transfer papers. HR already approved your move to Karachi." I stared at the screen. "You're leaving?" She didn't answer right away. "It's temporary," she said too quickly. "Just a senior posting." "How long have you known?" Her silence told me enough. I laughed under my breath, the kind of bitter laugh you make when the world stops making sense. "So that's your solution. Run away." "I'm protecting you," she whispered. From me, my throat tightened. "You don't get to decide that." She finally turned, tears glinting in her eyes, but her voice steady. "Yes, I do. Before this becomes something we can't undo." For a moment, I thought she'd soften. I thought she'd take it back. But she didn't. Instead, she stepped forward, placed her hand on my cheek, tender, trembling, and said, "You'll thank me one day." Then she walked past me, leaving her office lights off behind her. And just like that, I realized the thing I'd been most afraid of had already happened. She wasn't mine to lose anymore. She left on a Thursday. No annoncement, no advice. Just an empty desk, a closed laptop, and a faint trace of jasmine in the air that refused to fade. HR said she transferred early. No one questioned it. No one looked twice. Except me. For days, I walked past her office even though I knew she wasn't there, half expecting the door to open, half hoping it wouldn't. It was ridiculous, the way absence can make a room louder than words ever did. Every time I saw her name in an email or heard someone mention her new post in Karachi, something inside me twisted tighter. I tried to bury myself in work, tried to pretend it didn't matter. But every late night felt emptier without her quiet voice, her corrections, her coffee gone cold beside mine. And then one evening, as I was packing up, I saw her, standing by the elevator. Same crisp white blouse, same calm face. Only this time, there was no distance. Just exhaustion, and something softer than I remembered. "You shouldn't be here," I said. "I had to clear a few files," she replied, though we both knew she didn't. We stood there in the hallway alone. The hum of the lights, the faint echo of typing from the far end of the floor, all of it felt too far away. I took a slow breath. "You could have said goodbye." Her eyes lowered. "It would have made it harder." "It already is," I said quietly. She looked up, the smallest smile, sad and warm. "You're angry." "I'm not," I lied. "Just tired of pretending." Something in her expression softened, like the fight inside her had finally burned out. "I thought distance would fix it," she said. "That if I left, you'd move on." "And did it?" "No," she admitted, almost inaudibly. "If anything, it made me miss you more." The words hung between us, fragile, trembling. I stepped closer, my heartbeat too loud in the stillness. "Then why are we still doing this to ourselves?" Her eyes glistened, but she didn't move away. "Because wanting something doesn't mean it's right." "Maybe not," I said, "but it's real." That made her close her eyes for a second, like she was trying to remember how to breathe. When she opened them again, there was no shield left. Just her. "I'm scared, Rayhan," she whispered, "of ruining what's left of me. Of ruining you." "You won't," I said. "You already saved me once, when you looked at me and saw something worth reminding yourself of." For a moment, neither of us spoke. The elevator behind her chimed softly, doors sliding open, a quiet invitation to walk away. She glanced at it, then back at me. "You'll regret this someday," she said. "Then I'll regret it with you," I replied. Her breath hitched, half a laugh, half a sob. She reached out, her hand trembling slightly before it touched mine. And in that brief, stolen moment, we didn't kiss, didn't confess. We just understood. That love, real love, isn't always loud or right or lasting. Sometimes it's just standing in a hallway, holding the hand of someone you were never meant to love, and realizing you both already did. The elevator doors closed. She didn't get in. We didn't talk for months after that night. She stayed in Karachi. I stayed behind, pretending life was fine, pretending silence didn't ache the way it did. At first, I kept telling myself I'd move on. That distance would dull everything. Her voice, her scent, the way she said my name like it meant something. But love doesn't fade like that. It hides in small things, in an email draft you never send, in the song you skip because it hurts too much to listen. Sometimes I'd see her name in company updates. Aisha Malik spearheads new regional project. Promotion announced for director of operations. Each headline felt both like pride and punishment. She was doing what she always did, rising higher, staying composed, never looking back. And yet, some nights when the office was empty and rain tapped the windows again, I'd swear I could still feel her near, that quiet warmth she carried, that calm that always steadied me. Then one afternoon my phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Are you free for coffee?" I read it twice. My chest tightened. Half an hour later, she was standing across from me in a small cafe near the old office. Same poise, same grace, but her eyes softer now, the kind of tired that comes from feeling too much and hiding it too long. "You look different," I said. She smiled faintly. "You look the same. Still restless." "Still yours," I wanted to say, but I didn't. We sat in quiet for a moment, both unsure who should speak first. She broke the silence. "I read your article," she said. "The one about leadership and empathy." I laughed softly. "Did you like it?" "I recognize your tone," she said. The pauses between words, they sounded like you were still arguing with me. I probably was. That made her laugh, quiet, real. It felt like breathing again. We talked for an hour. Not about us, not directly, but every sentence carried what we didn't say. She told me about Karachi, about the chaos and the calm. I told her about my promotion, how it felt empty without her around. When it was time to leave, she stood first. "This feels easier now," she said. "Doesn't it?" "Easier," I echoed. "But not gone." She nodded slowly. "Maybe it's not supposed to be. Some people stay in your life. Others stay in your heartbeat." Then, before I could answer, she reached out and fixed the collar of my shirt, the same way she used to when she still called me Junior. Her hand lingered for a second longer than it should have. Then she stepped back. "I'm glad you reminded me who I used to be," she said. "And I'm glad you made me someone new," I replied. We stood there, smiling, two people who had once crossed a line and now stood on opposite sides of it, quietly grateful it existed at all. She turned to leave. I didn't stop her. Some endings aren't about holding on. They're about finally knowing when to let go. As she walked away, the world didn't feel emptier, just quieter. And somehow, that silence felt like peace. Did you enjoy the story? Would you want their paths to cross again? Or should love like this stay where it belongs, between what was said and what never needed to be? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?